Atma Namaste and welcome everyone to the study of the book The Causal Body and the Ego by Arthur Powell. So this will be the last one of the series of the books. And this is very interesting book and very important in understanding about the soul, the nature of the soul, about the group souls, the higher soul, the different incarnations, and therefore how to live our life, and how to evolve, like accelerate the evolution. So as usual, we start with a short invocation and then we will begin the book. So we will discuss about different topics. At any point, if you have questions or if you have any understanding or like an inspiration that you want to share with others, please put in the chat. Or if you want to share it, you can unmute and share as well. And what else? So I think that's about it. So let's begin. Please close your eyes. Inhale and exhale slowly and deeply. Please relax your body. If you feel any pain or discomfort at any area of your body, bring your awareness to that area and mentally say, I let go. I am not the body. The body is just the vehicle of the soul. I am the soul. I am that I am. Visualize your whole body disintegrate and disappear. All the cells and organs in your body disintegrate and disappear. All the pain and discomfort disintegrate and disappear. What remains is just brilliant white light. Inhale slowly and deeply. Exhale slowly and deeply. Inhale and exhale. Now please bring your awareness to your thoughts and your emotions. Just observe each and every thought that comes to your mind and fades away. Mentally say, I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. Thoughts and emotions are just products of the soul. I am the soul. I am that I am. Visualize all your thoughts and emotions disintegrate and disappear. All your worries, fears, frustrations, stress disintegrate and disappear. What remains is just brilliant white light. Inhale slowly and deeply. Exhale slowly and deeply. Now please bring your awareness higher to your crown chakra and mentally say to the Supreme Being, to our spiritual teacher, to Grandmaster Shuak Sui, to Lord Mahaguruji Mailing and all the great ones, all the holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, spiritual helpers, to all the masters of Theosophical Society, thank you for all of your priceless blessings, for divine light, divine love and divine power, divine guidance, help and protection, inner healing and physical healing, good health and happiness. Thank you for blessing us with spirituality and illumination, abundance and prosperity. Thank you for blessing us with understanding. Thank you in full faith. Inhale slowly, inhale all the blessings. Exhale slowly and be aware of your whole body. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. Inhale slowly, inhale all the blessings. And exhale slowly. Now please put your two hands in a namaste position in front of your heart. Be aware of the presence of each and every person in this session and mentally say, Atma Namaste. I am happy you are here. And when you are comfortable, gently open your eyes with a big smile. Atma Namaste. Okay, now let's start with this book. So it has a lot of chapters, as you see here, and I'm sure you have the book. So we will go one by one and we see how far we can reach today, hopefully by the end of chapter 5. Okay, so the first chapter is about general description, okay, about the causal body. So let's begin. First of all, why we are studying this book. The reason of studying this or studying about the causal body is that whilst the etheric, astral, and mental bodies exist for one human incarnation only and are distinctly mortal, the causal body persists throughout the whole of man's evolution, through many incarnations, and is therefore relatively immortal. Okay, so as we know, after every life, different bodies disintegrate and so they are mortal. But the causal body remains, and that is why the name is causal body, because as long as the cause for incarnation remains, we incarnate, and causal body remains. Now, we say relatively immortal because as we will see in later, there is a point where a man, having completed his purely normal human evolution, commences his supernormal human evolution and actually loses the causal body in which he has lived and evolved during the past ages of his growth. Okay, we will come back to this later. But as long as the cause for evolution remains, means as long as there is a lesson to learn, we will incarnate and the causal body remains. But once we have finished the human evolution, the normal human evolution, and we start our super normal human evolution, then the causal body um, disappears, means we lose our causal body and we continue evolving in another level. So we must discover and study the origin and birth of the causal body, how it has formed in the first instance. Finding that it had a beginning, we see at once not only that it must have an end, but also that there must be some other form of consciousness which uses the causal body, much as the ego in the causal body uses the vehicles of the personality. This other form of consciousness is, of course, the human monad. Okay, now we will talk about all of this. So, this causal body has a beginning. It has been created at some point and it has an end, as we just discussed. And as the higher soul, so ego, as we all know in the Theosophical Society, in the Theosophy books, ego means the higher soul. So as the higher soul in the causal body uses the vehicles of the personality, personality in Theosophy means the incarnated soul, there is another form of consciousness which uses the causal body as a vehicle, means the vehicle of the ego, the causal body as a vehicle, and that is human monad. Now, monad in Theosophy language is the divine spark, as in Master Choa Kok Sui's teaching. Okay, now we are going to discuss about all of this. This is just like an introduction about what we are going to see in this book. So reverting to the birth or formation of the causal body, we are at once plunged into a consideration of the somewhat intricate subject of group souls, with which we shall have to deal. Tracing the origin of group souls, we are led back, step by step, to the three great outpourings of the divine life, from which all forms of manifested life arise. Okay, now if you have joined us in the study session of the solar system, with which we started, we have already discussed about these three outpourings and how individualization happened from group souls. And when individualization happens, then the causal body appears. Okay, so we are going to discuss again here, but in a more deeper sense. Okay, in the solar system, it was more of like a very quick study. Now, until eventually, after eons of existence, the point of individualization is reached when the causal body for the first time appears. Okay, so I think group souls will be the subject of next study session. We will discuss how group souls forms, and from the group souls how individualization happens. And when the individualization is about to happen, the causal body appears. Now then we must pass to a fuller examination of the entity, the ego, who inhabits and uses the causal body. So means the ego is not the causal body. The ego uses the causal body. So the higher soul uses the causal body. Now we will talk about the higher soul also. Projecting from it personality after personality into the cycle of reincarnation. We must examine what is known as Trishna or thirst, which is the true cause of reincarnation. Okay? So we will talk about Trishna also, which is the cause for incarnation and is known as the thirst, means the higher soul actually wants to incarnate. That's why in every incarnation sends a portion of itself as the incarnated soul, or as what is known in Theosophy personality, to experience the physical, the emotional, and mental worlds and learn, okay, evolve. So that is called the thirst. Now, sometimes, when the life gets very tough, we all reach to a point that I want to go back, it's like enough. But after we go back, after some time, this thirst keeps coming back, that I want to go back and I want to grow. And that's why we decide again to come back to life as another incarnated soul. And we will discuss about that also. Okay, so chapter 2 is about the field of evolution. At any point you have questions, please put in the chat, yeah? Or sometimes when we study about something, you get an inspiration or you remember a certain teaching. Like sometimes when I read this, I get some ideas about my previous studies in like Sufism and poems and poetry, and it becomes very interesting. So if something like that happens, please share. Share in the group, share in the chat, so everybody benefit from that. Okay, so let's study chapter 2, which is the field of evolution. Now, by the field of evolution, we mean the material universe in which evolution to take place. So, strictly speaking, life or spirit and matter are not in reality separate and distinct existences, but rather are opposite poles of one noumenon. But for purposes of intellectual analysis and study, it is convenient to consider these two aspects or poles almost as though they were separate and distinct, much in the same way that the builder, for example, considers more or less separately plans and sections of his buildings, although these plans and sections are merely abstractions from the one entity, the building itself. Okay, so when in the study of the book, we discuss about spirit and matter separately, we should not consider them separate. Now later we discuss that even in the level where monad is, there is still some matter involved. Okay, but it's like very subtle and very light matter. But we study them separately, just as an architect studies plans and sections separately, although they are all connected and one connected to the building itself. So the field of evolution in our solar system consists of 7 planes or worlds. These may be regarded as making up 3 groups. Okay, so I think in the solar system book itself, we already came across these 7 planes of existence. Okay, so we have 7 planes, but we group them into 3 groups. First is the field of logoic manifestation only. Okay. Number 2, the field of supernormal evolution. And number 3, the field of normal human, animal, vegetable, mineral, and elemental evolution. Okay, we will show, I think we have it here. Yeah. So these are the 7 planes: Adi, Anupadaka, Atma, Buddhi, Manas, Kama, Stula. Okay, and we can divide them into 3 groups. Group 1 is a field of evolution, logoic manifestation. Group 2 is supernormal human initiates, and group 3 is the normal human, animal, vegetable, mineral, and elemental entities. So the Adi and Anupadaka planes may be conceived as existing before the solar system is formed. The Adi plane may be imagined as consisting of so much of the matter of space, symbolized by points, as the logos marks out to form the material basis of the system he is about to produce. Now, to understand this, I really suggest you go back to the book, The Solar System, and we have already made them available like throughout. Like we are not going to limit the access, so you can go back and study again. If you remember when we were talking about the existence of the solar system, we said first the logos will decide where he wants to make the solar system. Just like an architect who wants to build a building, first goes and selects a site, marks the site, like this is the place we are going to build this building. So the logos will also choose a certain radius, a certain area, and say this is the place that the solar system is going to exist. Okay, and then marking it like a point. Okay, so this is symbolized by a point, later we will see. So it's like a marking out that this area will be where the solar system is going to be created. The Anupadaka plane, symbolized by lines, we may imagine as consisting of this same matter, modified or colored by his individual life. His all ensouling consciousness, thus differing in some way from the corresponding plane in another solar system. Okay, now again, you go back to the study of the solar system. We discussed that once he marks where he wants to create this solar system, like symbolized by the point, then he blow his certain consciousness. Okay, so and that's why he say he's all ensouling consciousness. And then through outpourings, the atoms will be built, and then the kingdoms, and then the individualization and evolution begins. Okay, so Adi plane is symbolized by dots, and Anupadaka plane is symbolized by lines. But still, it's just the field of evolution is just logoic. Group 2, Atma and Buddhi, spirit, intuition, supernormal human initiates, and then the normal human evolution, which is the mind, manas, kama, emotions, and stula, physical activities. Physical plane, emotional plane, mental plane. Now, mental plane is divided into lower mental and higher mental, which we will discuss shortly. So the first stage, the logos marks out his universe on the Adi plane, symbolized by the dot. And second stage, the logos modifies this matter with his own individual life on the Anupadaka plane, symbolized by light. Okay, this is explained very deeply in detail in the book Solar System. So you just go back, and I think it's in first few chapters also. So this preparatory work may be illustrated in another way by 2 sets of symbols, one showing the threefold manifestation of the consciousness of the logos, the other the threefold change in matter, corresponding to the threefold change in consciousness. Okay, we will discuss about this shortly. Taking first the manifestation of consciousness, the site of the universe having been marked out. So the logos himself appears as a point within the sphere. Then the logos goes forth from that point in 3 directions to the circumference of that sphere or circle of matter. The consciousness of the logos returns on itself, manifesting at each point of contact with the circle one of the 3 fundamental aspects of consciousness, known as will, wisdom, and activity. Okay, so this is the image. Oh, so imagine first the site is marked out. The logo appears as a point. The logos goes forth in three directions, and then the consciousness returns back on itself. This should be like, there should be another arrow showing return back. Okay, now these three are known as the three aspects of God that we know, right? The will, the love, and the light or intelligence aspect. So if you have studied Grandmaster Choa Kok Sui's teachings, the three aspects in the book, Existence of God is Self-Evidence, he already talks about the Trinity that appears in every religion, like God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, light, love, will aspect. So this is that. So let's study again. So first, the logos himself appear as a point within the sphere, which is here. The logos goes forth from that point in three directions to the circumference of that sphere or circle of matter. Okay, so imagine this is the site. The logos appear as a point. So this is circumference of matter where he has already marked out where the solar system is going to be. Then the consciousness of the logos goes forth from that point in the three direction to the circumference of that spirit. Okay, so the consciousness goes in threefold to reach the circumference of matter. And then the consciousness of the logos return on itself, manifesting at each point of contact with the circle one of the three fundamental aspects of consciousness, known as will, wisdom, and activity. Okay, we know it as will, light, love. Love, light, and will. So the joining of the three aspects or phases of manifestation at their outer points of contact with the circle gives the basic triangle of contact with matter. Okay, so it creates a basic triangle here. This triangle, together with the three triangles formed by the lines traced by the point, yields the divine tetractys, sometimes called the cosmic quaternary. Okay, so if this goes and comes back on itself, and then we draw three lines here, this is called the cosmic quaternary. Taking now the changes set up in universal matter corresponding to the manifestations of consciousness, we have in the sphere of primordial substance the virgin matter of space. The logos appearing as a point irradiating the sphere of matter, the point vibrating between center and circumference, thus making the line which, okay, now up to here was the manifestation of the logos. Okay, so as we have it here. Now this one is the response of matter. Now we are discussing this. Okay, so first the logos create or marks out a certain circumference, a certain area, and then appears as a point, and then sends three types of energy out. This reach the circumference of matter, comes back on itself, and create a triangle. Okay, so this is called the cosmic quaternary. Then after this, the matter responds back. So now we are studying the response of matter. The logos appearing as a point irradiating the sphere of matter, the point vibrating between center and circumference, thus making the line which marks the drawing apart from spirit and matter. The point with the line revolving with it, vibrating at right angles to the former vibration and forming the primordial cross within the circle. So virgin matter of space, logos appear as a point in the sphere of matter. The point vibrates between the center and the circumference. And then the point and the line vibrate at right angles. create the cross. So this is primordial cross. The cross is thus said to proceed from the Father, the point, and the Son, the diameter, and represents the third logos, the creative mind, the divine activity ready to manifest as creator. Okay, has anybody here in your meditation you have seen triangle or square, cross? So sometimes symbolically we are seeing things related to this kind of consciousness, like the, um, the field of evolution, how the evolution started, the consciousness of the logos, and the response of matter. I was studying architecture, like traditional architecture, and a lot of this appears like this 4 is usually in the entrance of the houses, traditional houses in Iran, and it's called hashti. And then there is this circle on top of it like a dome. So there is a lot of these kind of things appear symbolically, especially in architecture, or you may have read about it, or you may have seen in some of the meditations also. Okay, so the cross is actually response of matter to the logos, to the energy of the logos or consciousness of the logos. Okay, hope was not too hard. Now chapter 3, initially the book is a bit harder, and then in between it becomes easier and more understandable. So the coming forth of the monads. Now imagine this is the universe is now ready. The field of evolution is already created and ready for the evolution to begin. Now we have the coming forth of the monads. First, we must note the origination of the monads or units of consciousness for whose evolution in matter the field of a universe is prepared. Okay, so means first this whole field of evolution is prepared and then the monad come forth. Okay, and evolution continues. Okay, so there are a lot of these monads or units who are to be developed in the coming universe and generated within the divine life before the field for their evolution is formed. That willed, I shall multiply and be born. Thus, the many arise in the one by that act of will. The act of will is that of the first logos, the undivided Lord, the Father. Okay, so first of all, we have many monads. It's not just one monad. Okay, and all of these monads are originated from the logos, the first aspect, which is the will aspect, the Father aspect. So many arise in the one by that act of will. The act of will is that of the first logos, the undivided Lord, the Father. The monads are described as sparks of the supreme fire, as divine fragments. Now, in Master Chakoksu's teachings, the monads are called divine spark. Okay, so you see here is also explained that there are sparks of the supreme fire or divine fragments. So a monad may thus be defined as a fragment of the divine life separated off as an individual entity by rarest film of matter. Okay, you see, we said spirits and matter are not separable. Even in the what you call level of the monad, we still have matter, but it's rarest film of matter, matter of so rare that while it gives a separate form to each, it offers no obstacle to the free intercommunication of a life, thus encased with the surrounding similar lives. Okay, so this very rarest film of matter makes the monads separable from each other. Okay, so that's why each of the monads is an individual entity separated by this rarest film of matter, which is very subtle actually. A monad is thus not pure consciousness, pure self, or is called sambit, gift of God. That is an abstraction. In the concrete universe, there are always the self and his sheath, however tenuous the sheath may be, so that a unit of consciousness is inseparable from matter. So means, although this matter is very, very tenuous and very subtle, but still it creates a sheath and it's like still separate the monads from one another. So hence a monad is consciousness plus matter already. The monad of theosophy is the Jiv Atma of Indian philosophy, the Purusha of the Samkhya, the particularized self of the Vedanta. Okay, now in the study of pranic healing, Jivatma is not the monad. In pranic healing language, divine spark is called the monad. But please take note of this because sometimes these what you call words create confusion when we read them. Okay. So at least we know that if you are reading Indian philosophy, Jiv Atma is connected with monad. Or if you are reading Vedanta, particularized self means monad. So in pranic healing, divine spark is monad. So the life of the monads being thus of the first logos, they may be described as sons of the Father. Okay, so we said the monads originated from first aspect of the logos because they are generated by the will. They originated from the will aspect. So that's why they are called the sons of Father. You know, Father is the will aspect of the Trinity. Just as the second Logos himself is the son of the Father. But the monads are but younger sons, with none of their divine powers capable of acting in matter denser that of their own plane, the Anupadaka. While the second Logos, with ages of evolution behind him, stands ready to exercise his divine powers, the firstborn among many brethren. Okay, now what does it mean? It means although the monads are also known as the sons of Father, but these sons of Father, they are not evolved yet. They are pure but not perfect. Okay, as Grandmaster Chaku says, even higher soul is pure but not perfect. So not perfect means they cannot act on any other plane than their own plane. So means they cannot act in lower planes. None of their divine powers capable of acting in matter denser than that of their own plane. So means they can only act in Anupadaka plane. They cannot act in denser matter. So means they are still not evolved. They are not perfect, but they are pure. Whilst the roots of their life are in the Adi plane, the monads themselves dwell on the Anupadaka plane, as yet without vehicles in which they can express themselves, awaiting the day of manifestation of the sons of God. There they remain, while the third Logos begins the external work of manifestation, shaping the matter of the objective universe. So means when this Adi plane and Anupadaka plane is created and the monads are there, they are still waiting for manifestation in lower plane. So the third Logos then starts to create the external world of manifestation so the monads can incarnate and start their evolution. So thus these units of consciousness known as monads are described as the sons abiding from the beginning of a creative age in the bosom of the Father, who have not yet been made perfect through suffering. So you see, they are pure, but they are not perfect. Each of them is truly equal to the Father as touching his Godhead, but inferior to the Father as touching his manhood. Each of them is to go forth into matter in order to render all things subject to himself. He is to be sown in weakness that he may be raised in power. So means because they are pure but not perfect, they have to incarnate, they have to come down to the manifested world experience the world, gather experiences, learn lessons, and how to say, strengthen their powers. So sown in weakness, but raised in power. So whilst omniscient, omnipresent on his own plane, the Anupadaka, he is unconscious, senseless on all others. He is to veil his glory in matter that blinds him in order that he may become omniscient, omnipresent on all planes, able to answer to all divine vibrations in the universe instead of only those of the highest levels. Okay, so means they are omniscient and present, but only in Anupadaka plane. They are not powerful, they are not omniscient, they are not omnipresent, and they cannot really respond to the vibrations of other planes. So that's why they incarnate, they evolve, so that they can become omniscient and omnipresent on all planes. So that is what we call evolution. As the monads derive their being from the first logos, his will to manifest is also their will. Hence, the whole process of evolution of the individual I is an activity chosen by the monads themselves. We are here in the worlds of matter because we as monads willed to live. We are self-moved, self-determined. Okay, so we said monads are originated from the will aspect of God. So we exist here because we willed to live. We were determined to live, to grow, and to evolve. That is why we are here. Okay, so this is the image of what we just discussed. So this is the Adi plane, which is the Logos consciousness. He is here. Anupadaka plane, the monads are here. So they are still connected with the Father, with the will aspect, with the Logos, but then they are ready to incarnate, to come down actually, to send forth of their light. They are waiting now for the 5 lower planes to get formed by the third logos, means third aspect of God, which is the intelligence aspect. Okay, so we will discuss that now through the different outpourings. These 5 lower planes will get created and then the whole evolution begins. So this divine impulse, striving ever after fuller manifestation of life, is seen everywhere in nature and has often been spoken of as the will to live. It appears in the seed, which pushes its its growing point up towards the light, in the bud bursting its prison and expanding in the sunshine. So this is still talking about the will aspect. So we said because the monos are from the will aspect of the God, we have will to live, we have will to start the evolution, and this we see in every part of the nature. From the seed that is pushing, using the will to burst its prison and expand in the sunshine, it's there. It is the creative genius in the painter, the sculptor, the poet, the musician, the craftsman, the subtlest pleasure, delight derives from this urge from within to create. All things feel most alive when multiplying themselves by creation. To expand, to increase, results from the will to live. The fruition is the bliss of living, the joy of being alive. Okay, so if you think about it, we all will to live, we all will to create, we all will to evolve, and all of this is originated from that we just discussed. Okay, and it's there in every part of the universe. Now, even if you notice, sometimes when life becomes very boring and there is no more way to evolve, we subconsciously want to change things. We create new challenges for ourselves to evolve. So this is all because of that will to live, will to create, will to grow. Okay, so we discussed about the field of evolution. We discussed that the monads originated from the field aspect of God. They are in the Anupadaka plane, ready to start their evolution. And this is all because of the will to evolve, will to grow, will to live. And they are waiting for the third aspect of the logos to create the lower planes so the evolution can begin. Now we talk about chapter 4 talks about the formation of the 5 planes. Again, if you have studied the book Solar System, this should become a bit easier to understand. Now continuing now with the creative process, the third logos, the universal mind, works on the matter of space. Mula Prakriti, the celestial Virgin Mary, throwing its 3 qualities of tamas, which means inertia, rajas, mobility, and sattva, rhythm, out of stable into unstable equilibrium, and therefore into continual motion in relation to each other. Okay, before we continue, there's a question here. So the creation created subconsciously is related to the problems in life, or it refers to creation of things like art and so on. Sorry, I didn't understand the question. The creation started because initially, as we discussed, the monads are pure but not perfect. They can only work, they are only omnipresent, omniscient in their own plane, but they are not omnipresent or omniscient in other planes. They are not conscious and they cannot respond to the vibrations of other planes. So it means they are not perfect. So, and they have this thirst to evolve. Okay, so that the will to live, the will to evolve starts the whole creation. Now we will talk about thirst later on. That Trishna or thirst is the whole purpose of the whole, yes, the whole what you call reason for the incarnation, several incarnations. Now that will to live, the slide says that will to live, we will see it in every aspect of life. We see it in nature, from the seeds growing up, also in the sculptor, the poet, the musician. This will to create, this will to evolve, this will to multiply, it's in every aspect of life, in nature and in humanity. Okay, so now the formation of the 5 planes is done by the third aspect, okay, which is here known as the third logos. The third logos thus creates the atoms of the 5 lower planes, Atma, Buddhi, Manas, Kama, and Stula. Fohat electrifies into life and separates primordial stuff or pre-genetic matter into atoms. Now, this one I really again suggest you study the book Solar System because there we discussed it in detail. So, in the first outpouring from the third aspect of the logos through 7 impulses, the 5 planes will get created, and each of these impulses uses the matter of the universe and creates the atomic matter. Now, this matter of the universe, initially, like as it was explained in the solar system, there was this pure matter, which is known also as koilon or hollow. And then when God breathes his almighty power, it creates small, small bubbles which are ready to be used as matters or substances to create the universe. And then through these 7 impulses, the impulses create certain compulsion, repulsion, and activity and vortex, and bring these bubbles together and create the matters and planes subplanes of each plane. So in this way, the 5 planes get created. Now, if you want to know more, I really suggest you read the book The Solar System or listen to the recording. Now, we may note that there are 3 stages in the formation of these atoms. Number 1, the fixing of the limit within which the life of the logos shall vibrate. This being known as the divine measure, or tanmatra, literally the measure of that being the divine spirit. Okay, so first, fixing the limit within which the life of the logos shall vibrate. 2, the marking out of the axis of growth of the atom, the lines which determine its shape. These correspond to the axis of crystals. And 3, from the measurement of the vibration and the angular relation of the axes with each other, the surface or wall of the atom is determined. Okay, so first fixing the limit within which the life of the logos shall vibrate, and then fixing or marking out the axis of growth of the atom, and then from the measurement of the vibration and the angular relation of the axes with each other, the surface or wall of the atom is determined. Now, under the directive activity of the third logos, the atoms of each plane are awakened to new powers and possibilities of attraction and repulsion, so that they aggregate into molecules and simpler molecules into complex ones, until on each of the 5 planes, 6 lower subplanes are formed, making in all 7 subplanes on each plane. Okay, so this is the first outpouring from the third aspect of God. Through the outpouring in each of the plane, the molecules, the atoms start vibrating, and then there is this, how to say, attraction and repulsion. Forces of attraction and repulsion create, which aggregate into molecules and simpler molecules into complex ones. And then from that, the 5 planes, on these 5 planes, the 6 lower subplanes are formed, making in all 7 subplanes on each plane. The matter of the subplanes so formed, however, is not that now existing. It is the more strongly attractive or cohesive energies of the second logos, the aspect of wisdom or love, which brings about the further integrations into the forms of matter with which we are acquainted. Okay, so means the energy of the first outpouring from the third aspect of God first just creates the atoms and molecules and more complex ones in different subplanes. But this is still not the, what you call, the matter that we know of until the energy of the second logos, which is the aspect of wisdom or love, that bring them together and create forms as of we know. Furthermore, the whirling currents in the atoms known as spirally are not made by the third logos, but by the monad. Okay, in solar system, we also discussed about the spirally in the atoms. Now, the spirally are developed into full activity in the course of evolution, normally one in each round. Many of the practices of yoga are directed to bring about the more rapid development of the spirally. So if you remember, we said in solar system, in every round, an extra force will be put into the atom, which helps to activate one of the spirilla of the atom. So in the round 1, only one spirilla is in activity. In round 2, 2. In round 3, 3. In round 4, 4. And by the end of the 7th round, all the 7 spirilla of the atom will be in full activity. And through each, certain powers will get activated. That's why at the end of round 7 is believed for human to have like full power or what you call activity. But there are certain practices like yoga and some spiritual practices that try to activate more. And only in round 7, this believed to be in full activity, and therefore different powers of humanity will be activated. So thus in every atom lie involved innumerable possibilities of response to the three aspects of consciousness, and these possibilities are developed in the atom in the course of evolution, as we discussed, one in every round. This work of third logos is usually spoken of as the first life wave or first outpouring. Okay? So we had this Adi plane and Anupadaka plane, which is for the consciousness, only consciousness of the logos. Monads are in Anupadaka plane, waiting for the formation of the other 5 planes. So when the first outpouring from the third aspect of God comes forth, third aspect of God is intelligence or creative intelligence. So initially, as we discussed earlier, the logos has already marked a certain place, a certain part of space that the solar system is going to be built. Okay, and has already his consciousness is already there, like making many bubbles in this area. And when the first outpouring from the third aspect of God comes, it creates the atoms in a certain way, which we discussed in the solar system book in detail. So from there, all these 5 planes and their subplanes gets created. Now this is ready for the monad to start the evolution. Any questions so far? So once these 5 planes are created and all the subplanes are created, then the kingdoms of life will be created. This is through the second outpouring. So into matter, vivified by the third logos, the second great wave of the divine life descends, coming from the second logos or second person of the Trinity. This is usually known as the second outpouring. First outpouring was from the third aspect of God, which is intelligence. Second outpouring is from the second aspect of God, which is love or wisdom. So the second person of the Trinity thus takes form not of the virgin or unproductive matter alone, but of the matter which is already instinct with the life of the third person, so that both the life and the matter surround him as a vesture. So means the matter is already ready for the second outpouring to create the kingdoms of life. It is thus an accurate statement that he is incarnate of the Holy Ghost and the Virgin Mary, which is the true rendering of a prominent passage in the Christian creed. Slowly and gradually, this resistless flood of life pours down through the various planes and kingdoms, spending in each of them a period equal in duration to one entire incarnation of a planetary chain and covering many millions of years. Okay, now I think I have, yes. This is from the solar system book, which we also discussed. Here you see the first outpouring from the third aspect of God, which creates the planes. And then second outpouring from the second aspect of God creates the kingdoms. We have first elemental kingdom, second elemental kingdom, third, the mineral kingdom, vegetable, animal, and human. And in the first 3 elemental kingdoms, life is descending more and more into matter. Mineral kingdom is the turning point, which if you remember, if you have already joined the solar system study, we said this is a conflict between matter and spirit. And then from vegetable kingdom to human kingdom is ascension. So sometimes this is called involution, and evolution. Okay, and when human is ready to become in like from animal kingdom, we are ready to individualize into human kingdom, then the third outpouring comes, which helps in creation of the causal body and the individualized souls. Okay, we will discuss about that later. Now, we also discussed that in the solar system, each of these, like moving from one to another, will take one chain. So here, that is what it's saying. One entire incarnation of a planetary chain. Planetary chain, if you remember, we said each chain in the solar system, we said each chain has 7 globes, and life continues in all of the 7. That is called chain. So each of these will take one whole chain. So we who are human in this current chain, earth chain, we were animals in the previous chain, which was the moon chain. So usually each kingdom spend one whole chain in that kingdom and then move on to the next kingdom in the next chain. Of course, naturally in general, but sometimes some people or some entities who wants to grow faster, they can bypass, or some who lag behind, they will take longer time. Okay, so at various stages of its descent, the life of the second outpouring is known by various names. As a whole, it is often spoken of as a monadic essence, though this term is better confined to the portion of it which is clothed only in the atomic matter of the various planes. When it ensouls matter of lower subplanes of each plane, all the subplanes below the atomic, which consist of molecular matter, is known as elemental essence. Okay, so this outpouring is known by various names. When it's discussing about the atomic matter, it is called monadic essence. And when we are talking about the other subplanes, this is called elemental essence. I think in the book Study of the Astral Body and the Mental Body, we have come across elemental essence a lot. This name is borrowed from the writings of medieval occultists, it having been bestowed by them on the matter of which the bodies of nature spirits were composed, for they spoke of these as elementals, dividing them into classes belonging to the elementals of fire, air, water, and earth. Okay, so the elemental essence come from these elements: fire, earth, water, air. So when the outpouring or wave of the divine life, which in some previous eon has finished its downward evolution through the Buddhic plane, pours down into the highest level of the mental plane, it ensouls great masses of atomic mental matter. In this, its simplest condition, it does not combine the atoms into molecules in order to form a body for itself, but simply applies by its attraction an immense compressing force to them. We may imagine the force on first reaching this plane on its downward swoop to be entirely unaccustomed to its vibrations and unable at first to respond to them. During the aeon which it will spend on this level, its evolution will consist in accustoming itself to vibrate at all rates which are possible there, so that at any moment it can ensoul and use any combination of the matter of that plane. During this long period of evolution, it will have taken upon itself all possible combinations of the matter of the three arupa, means formless, or causal levels. But at the end of that time, it returns to the atomic level, not of course as it was before, but bearing latent within it all the powers which it has gained. Okay, now what does it mean? It means when the outpouring comes down, let's say, do we have the photo here? of the planes. Okay, so comes down from the body to the manas, higher manas actually, from so first it it is not accustomed to the vibrations there. Okay, so after many years, it will get accustomed so that it can respond to vibrations of all the levels. And then it will go back to the atomic, but not as it was before, but within it, there are all the powers that gained, like every incarnation. Okay, we will discuss about human later, so it becomes easier to understand. Now, the wave of life, then having drawn together the matter of the causal plane, combines it into what at that level correspond to substances, and of these substances build forms which it inhabits. This is called the first elemental kingdom. As we are here dealing with the monadic essence on its downward arc, progress for it means descent into matter instead of, as with us, ascent towards higher planes. Hence, this essence, even on the causal plane, is less evolved than we are, not more so. But it would perhaps be more accurate to say that it is less involved, as its evolution in the strict sense of that term has not yet commenced. So, from first elemental kingdom, it should involve, means go downward to the second elemental kingdom, downward to third elemental kingdom, first elemental kingdom to second elemental kingdom to third elemental kingdom, and then to mineral kingdom. So it's like descending more and more and more into matter. And then only from the vegetable kingdom, we try to ascend higher into spirit again. Okay, so means the when the consciousness is like in the first elemental kingdom, it doesn't mean that it is more evolved as per se than a being who is already human. It still needs to involve more and more, although the level is higher. It's like in causal, and then it's in mental, and it's in astral, and then only it gets etheric and physical, although the level is higher, but basically it's not as evolved. Still needs to go downward, descend more and more into matter, and then only from the mineral vegetable kingdom we start ascending up. So that is the meaning of what was discussed here. So there are 7 subdivisions in the first elemental kingdom. The highest corresponds with the first subplane. The second, third, and fourth correspond with the second subplane. The fifth and sixth and seventh correspond with the third subplane. I think there is an image here, yes. Okay, so the first 3 subplanes of the mental plane are called higher mental, which we also know as causal plane. 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th is lower mental. Okay, now the first elemental kingdom belongs to causal or higher mental plane. It has 7 subdivisions also. Subdivision 1 corresponds to first subplane of the higher mental plane, 2, 3, and 4 to the second, and 5th, 6th, and 7th to the third. And once the involution here finished, then the consciousness goes even more downward. So this is called the second elemental kingdom. It's evolving, but its evolution means going more and more into matter. So after spending a whole chain period evolving through different forms at that level, the wave of life, which is all the time pressing steadily downwards, identifies itself so fully with these forms that instead of occupying them and withdrawing from them periodically, it is able to hold them permanently and make them part of itself. When that stage is reached, it can proceed to the temporary occupation of forms at a still lower level. Accordingly, it takes forms on the lower mental or rupa. So this higher mental is called arupa or formless. Lower mental is called rupa or form. Later we will discuss about this, which is connected with the idea of abstract thoughts and other thoughts, or more concrete thoughts. So this is like higher mental is more abstract thoughts, lower mental is concrete thoughts. We will discuss about this later. So the second elemental kingdom is divided into 7 subdivisions also. The highest subdivision correspond with the 4th subplane, the second and third divisions with the 5th subplane, the 4th and 5th subdivisions with the 6th subplane, the 6th and 7th with the 7th subplane. Okay, this is just for our understanding. After spending a whole chain period at this stage, the continuous downward pressure has caused the process to repeat itself. Once more, the life has identified itself with its forms and has taken up its residence on the lower mental levels. Then it takes for itself forms of astral matter and becomes the third elemental kingdom. So you see, first, the wave of life comes down to the first subplane of the higher mental plane and slowly goes down and down and down and get more accustomed with the vibrations here. And then once the evolution here finish, means already accustomed with all the vibrations, goes down to the lower mental and creates the second elemental kingdom. And once the evolution here finish, goes down again, this time to the astral, which creates the third elemental kingdom. So after spending a whole chain period in the third elemental kingdom, the life again identifies itself with those forms and so is able to ensoul the etheric parts of the mineral kingdom, becoming the life which vivifies that kingdom. In the course of the mineral evolution, the downward pressure again causes the life to identify itself with the etheric forms, and from those forms to ensoul the denser matter of such minerals as are perceptible to our senses. What we know as the mineral kingdom includes, of course, not only what are usually called minerals, but also liquids, gases, and many etheric substances as yet known to Western Orthodox science. So, this creating of 7 kingdoms is through the second outpouring from the second aspect of God, which is the love aspect. Initially is downward, going more and more into matter, so that the consciousness can understand and respond to the vibrations of lower matter and get more engrossed with matter. And then once that happens, the upward arc of evolution from matter into spirit starts. So when in the mineral kingdom, the life is sometimes called the mineral monad, just as at later stages it has been named the vegetable monad and the animal monad. These titles, however, are somewhat misleading because they seem to suggest that one great monad animates the entire kingdom, which is not the case, because even when the monadic essence first appears before us as the first elemental kingdom, it is already not one monad, but very many monads. Not one great life stream, but many parallel streams, each possessing characteristics of its own. Okay, I will explain this. When the outpouring has reached the central point of the mineral kingdom, the downward pressure ceases and is replaced by an upward tendency. The outbreathing has ceased and the inbreathing or indrawing has begun. It will be noted that if there were but one outpouring of life which passed from one kingdom to the next, there would be in existence at any given time one kingdom only. This, however, as we know, is not the case. The reason is that the Logos sends out a constant succession of waves of life, so that at any given time we find a number of them in operation. Okay, so this is also from the solar system book, if you remember. So at any point, we have many kingdoms in existence. So when we say mineral monad or vegetable monad, it doesn't mean that there is only one monad. Actually, there are so many. And these streams of life keep coming. So that's why you see now we have human kingdom. At the same time, in existence, there is animal kingdom, at the same time vegetable kingdom, um, mineral kingdom, and elemental kingdoms, because the life stream keeps coming. So thus we ourselves represent one such wave. The wave that immediately followed our wave now ensouls the animal kingdom. The wave behind that is now in the vegetable kingdom. A fourth is in the mineral stage, whilst the fifth, sixth, and seventh are represented by three elemental kingdoms. All are successive ripples of the same great outpouring from the second aspect of Logos. It means it's like a continuous stream from the second aspect of the Logos, which continue evolving. So at any point, we have many kingdoms in existence. This is from the solar system book. Chains. Yeah. So we who are like human now, we were animal in the previous chain. We were vegetable in the previous one. We were mineral in the previous one. Something like that. So the process of subdivision continues until at the end of the fifth great stage of evolution, it is finally divided into individualities, into men, each man being a separate and distinct soul, though at first, of course, an undeveloped soul. Looking at the work of second life waves or second outpouring as a whole, we may fairly regard its downward sweep as concerned with the making of primary tissues, out of which, in due time, subtle and dense bodies will be formed. In certain ancient scriptures, this process has been aptly called weaving. The materials which are prepared by the third logos are woven by the second logos into threads and fabrics, out of which future garments, bodies will be made. So this is like just symbolically saying, first the third logos create, materials, and these materials by the second logos are woven into threads and fabrics, and out of which bodies will be made in the future. The third logos may be thought of as a chemist working as in a laboratory. The second logos we may regard as the weaver working as in manufacturing, materialistic. As are these similes, they are useful as crutches for the understanding. Okay, so like the third logos sometimes is known as a chemist creating materials and like atoms and molecules in the laboratory. The second logos regarded as a weaver working in a manufactory. And then the first logos from which the third outpouring will come will create the bodies or individualized souls, the causal bodies. The second logos thus weaves various kinds of cloth of material out of which will later be made the causal and mental bodies of men. Out of the cloth of astral matter of desire stuff will later be made the astral bodies of men. So all this downward sweep of life wave through the planes, giving qualities to the many grades of matter, is a preparation for evolution and is often and more properly called involution. Okay, so first from the through the elemental kingdoms we evolve into matter more and more, and then we evolve. After the lowest stage of immersion in matter is reached, both the first and second outpourings turn upwards and begin their long ascent through the planes. This is evolution properly so called. We already discussed about this. After the third elemental kingdom, going to mineral kingdom, and then from the vegetable kingdom, it's really can be called evolution because it starts to going upward. Now, this diagram is an attempt to illustrate graphically the first outpouring from the third logos forming the matter of the 5 lower planes. Okay, so third logos, first outpouring, creates the matter of the 5 lower planes. The second outpouring, which taking the matter vivified by the third logos, molds and ensols it so as to produce the 3 elemental kingdoms. So imagine the third logos has already created the 5 planes and also the matter in the 5 planes. So everything is ready. Then the second logos will use that matter and create kingdoms. First the 3 elemental kingdoms, and then the mineral kingdom, and then vegetable and animal kingdoms. There is indicated also on the diagram the third outpouring from the first logos, the outpouring from which results the formation of individual entities or human beings. Okay, so the third outpouring from the first aspect of God, the will aspect, will create human kingdom, which is individualized entities. Now the mineral, here you see the mineral is shown a full width in the denser part of the physical plane. So you see it is shown as like a rectangle, as is like full width in the physical plane, showing that the life there, such as it is, has full control over the dense physical matter. So this being shown in a rectangle shows that the mineral has full control over the physical matter. But the band grows steadily narrower. You see, then it goes narrower like a triangle. So means indicating that control over etheric matter is not yet perfectly developed. So if this is physical, this is etheric, both of them showing the physical plane, a mineral has full control over the physical aspect, but not yet full control over the etheric matter. And some of the minerals a bit of control in karma or astral matter or emotion. The small point penetrating into the astral plane indicates that a little consciousness works through astral matter. This consciousness is the beginning of desire expressed in the mineral kingdom as chemical affinity. Now the band let's look at the vegetable kingdom. So vegetable kingdom has full control or consciousness in the physical plane and etheric plane. And some of the vegetables already show consciousness in relation to emotions and desires. So many of the people who work with plants, or you may have studied or read some studies about how plants respond to emotions. Like if you talk to them, if you play music to them, or if you show love and affection to them, they grow better. But if you scold them and don't show respect, and maybe like I heard, if you play like very hard metal or some sort of music like that, the plants will not grow well also. They may even dry, okay, because they already have some consciousness. In vegetable kingdom has already some consciousness in the astral plane. Okay, so means they can respond to emotions already. Now in the animal kingdom, it's even more. So in the animal kingdom, the band shows that there is full development in the lowest astral subplane. So if again we divide this into lower astral and higher astral, there is already full control over the lower astral, showing the animal is capable of experiencing to the fullest possible extent the lower desires. But the narrowing of the band through the higher subplanes show that his capacity for the higher desires is much more limited. Nevertheless, it does exist, so that it happens in exceptional cases that he may manifest an exceedingly high quality of affection and devotion. So in some of the pets, domestic animals, we see some of them, they show like affection, devotion, especially like some dogs, some animals like some pets that stay with humans. Some of them they show high um, emotions also. Okay, so that is why it shows that some of the animals still have higher emotions and is little bit going to the mental body, to the mental plane also. The band representing the animal shows also that there is already a development of intelligence which needs mental matter for its expression. So that's why a little bit goes into the mental plane. It is now generally admitted that some animals, both domestic and wild, undoubtedly exercise the power of reasoning from cause to effect. Some of the pets can be trained to behave in a certain way, so they can exercise the mental matter to a certain degree. So that's why we see a little bit still goes to the mental plane. Now, as the band is intended to represent the average animal, the point pierces only into the lowest subplane of the mental plane. With the highly developed domestic animals, the point might readily extend even to the highest of the four lower levels, though of course it would remain only a point and by no means the full width of the band. So since this is showing the average animal, that's why we see only going to the lower levels of the mental plane. But some of the domestic animals may show more activity in the in the mental plane, in the lower mental plane. Now, the band representing the human kingdom is seen to be of full width up to the lowest level of the mental plane, indicating that up to that level, his reasoning faculty is fully developed. In the higher subdivisions of the lower mental plane, the faculty of reason is not yet fully developed, as indicated by the narrowing of the band. Okay, so you see here for the human, again, this is average human, full activity in the physical, etheric, emotional, and lower mental. Okay, still in the higher subplanes of the lower mental, it's getting narrowed. And then on the higher mental, again narrows down. An entirely new factor, however, is introduced by the point on the higher mental or causal plane, because man possesses a causal body and a permanent reincarnating ego. In the case of the great majority of men, the consciousness does not rise beyond the third mental subplane. Okay, so in the majority, it doesn't go higher than the third subplane. Gradually, only as his development proceeds, the ego is able to raise his consciousness to the second or the first of the mental subplanes. The band on the extreme right-hand side represents a man much in advance of the ordinary man. Here we have the consciousness of a highly spiritual man whose consciousness has evolved beyond that of the causal body so that he can function freely on the plane of Buddhi and also has consciousness at least when out of the body on the plane of Atma. This one shows superhuman. So less consciousness is in the lower because more consciousness is already focused on the higher. Okay, and this person can actually function in the Buddhi and also Atmic levels. It will be noted that the center of his consciousness indicated by the widest part of the band is not, as in the case of most men, on the physical and astral planes, but between the higher mental and the Buddhic planes. The higher mental and higher astral are much more evolved than are their lower parts. And although he still retains his physical body, yet this is indicated merely by a point, the explanation being that he holds it solely for the convenience of working in it, and not in any way because his thoughts and desires are fixed there. So you see here for superhuman, it shows like a point here. It narrows down because a superhuman, a person who is highly evolved, highly spiritual, is not focusing on the lower um, lower vibrations, lower planes. even emotions are more of higher emotions, higher mental, but still is there because the physical body is kept because of the evolution again, because of working in it, not because there is attachment to it. Such a man has transcended all karma, which could bind him to incarnation, so that he takes the lower vehicles solely in order that through them he may be able to work for the good of humanity and to pour out at those levels those forces which otherwise could not descend so far. So these are the people who have already ascended, who have already become an arhat, illuminated. They don't need to incarnate anymore, but they still incarnate, and that's why they need a body so that they can help the humanity to evolve also. It is important to note that the evolutionary process which leads into expression, the involved consciousness has to begin by contacts received by its outmost vehicle. It must begin on the physical plane. Consciousness can become aware of an outside only by impacts on its own outside. Until then, it dreams within itself, as the faint inner thrillings ever outwelling from the monad cause slight pressure in the jiv atma, atma buddhi manas, like a spring of water beneath the earth seeking an outlet. Reverting to the second outpouring, we must note that it not only divides itself to an almost infinite degree, but also appears to differentiate itself so that it comes through countless millions of channels on every plane and subplane. Thus, on the Buddhic plane, it appears as the Christ principle in man. In man's mental and astral bodies, it vivifies various layers of matter, appearing in the higher part of the astral as a noble emotion, in the lower part as a Maya rush of life force, energizing the matter of the body. In its lowest embodiment, it rushes from the astral body into the etheric chakras or life or force centers where it meets the kundalini welling up from the interior of the human body. Okay, so we may also note here that Kundalini, or the serpent fire which wells up from the interior of the human body, belongs to the first outpouring and exists on all planes of which we know anything. Okay, so Kundalini energy created through the first outpouring. This force of Kundalini is, of course, quite distinct from prana or vitality, which belongs to the second outpouring, and also from fohat, from all forms of physical energy such as electricity, light, heat, etc. Kundalini in the human body comes from that laboratory of the Holy Ghost deep down in the earth, where are still being manufactured new chemical elements, showing increasing complexity of form and more energetic internal life and activity. But Kundalini is not that portion of the first outpouring engaged in the work of building chemical elements. It is more of the nature of a further development of the force, which is in the living center of such elements as radium. Kundalini is part of the first outpouring after it has reached its lower immersion in matter and is once more ascending towards the highest form which it came. It has already been mentioned that, speaking generally, the life wave which descends through the worlds of matter on its downward sweep causes ever increasing differentiation on its upward return. However, it brings about reintegration into unity. Okay, so Kundalini is uh, from the first outpouring, created from the first outpouring, and is still in activity, creating um, more, more and more life and chemical elements, and what else? So, as we know in our human body, it helps to upgrade the body. So, means it's still in activity. Is different from prana. Prana is the work of the second outpouring. So, Kundalini is the work of the first outpouring. Yeah, so I think that is enough. we already discussed about the fields of evolution and how the monads came into existence. And so they came from the will aspect of God, and they are in the Anupadaka plane. So the whole purpose of evolution is because they could only respond to the vibration in their own plane. So they are pure but not perfect. So to gain control and to be able to respond to all the vibrations of all the planes and be omniscient and omnipresent on all the planes, they have to evolve. So the whole evolution starts like that. And I think in the next session we will talk about the thirst that creates, or initiates the incarnation. So they were in that second plane, waiting for the third aspect of God through the first outpouring to create the rest of the planes. So through the first outpouring, the other planes, other 5 planes get created, the materials get created, the sub-planes get created, and then through the second outpouring from the second aspect of God, which is the love and wisdom, the kingdoms get created. So we have first the 3 elemental kingdoms, where this consciousness is descending more and more into matter to be able to respond using matter, to be able to understand and respond to the outside matter. Okay, and then we have the mineral kingdom, which is the turning point. From the vegetable kingdom, it's going upward. Means we are actually really evolving. And after the animal kingdom, third outpouring happens from the first aspect of God, which leads to the creation of the causal bodies. And there is the time that we have individualization of humans. So we are going to talk about that again more. And then we are going to talk about reincarnations and what you call the memory of all these reincarnations and all of this. Okay, so I hope it was interesting. The first part I know is a bit hard, but the book gets easier and easier as we move on. And I will try to also share that what you call that YouTube link from the solar system book, which explain about the creation of the solar system, so that we can understand or we can review that part again in case there were questions here. Okay, because in this book, it was not really explained in detail. Thank you so much. Any questions? So I think you're all fine. We will continue the session again next week. Thank you so much. If you have questions, please put in the group, WhatsApp group. We will try to again study together. Yes, in the beginning is a bit hard book, but it will get much more interesting and much more easier. Okay, and for the ones who joined the solar system, this part should be like a review, most part of it, because it talks about the outpourings and the kingdoms, which we discussed in detail in the book Solar System. Thank you so much. Let's finish with a short invocation. Please close your eyes. Inhale and exhale slowly and deeply. Mentally say to the Supreme Being, Divine Father, Divine Mother, the Grandmaster Chuak Sui, Lord Mahaguruji Meling, and all the great, great ones. Thank you for all of your priceless blessings, for divine light, divine love, and divine power, divine guidance, help, and protection. Thank you for blessing us with understanding. Thank you in full faith. Inhale slowly, inhale all the blessings. Exhale slowly and be aware of your whole body. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. Inhale slowly, inhale all the blessings. And when you are comfortable, gently open your eyes with a big, big smile. Thank you so much. Atma Namaste. Have a fantastic Saturday. Bye.